thank you so much again, Sharon, for being willing to do this. And I know you're from your car today, so I just appreciate like how real that is, right? That you're in the middle of your workday, you're busy, but you're willing to share your story. And I just very much appreciate that. So would you be willing to introduce yourself and then just kind of let us know like your story? Like, what was it like before you started your recovery journey?
Hi, I'm Sharon Temple. I'm from New Jersey. I have been in recovery since a long time. I've been a food sugar addict. I can remember since as young as 4 years old. I always grew up as the heaviest kid in school and even in with my peers. And most of my adult life has always been, I've always been classified as obese. And I always felt like a failure because I thought something was wrong with me. At the age of 14, my mom sent me to Weight Watchers, and the weigh-in pays, I just would lose a little weight and pick up the food, and the weight would come back on, with the bonus 10 or 20. And that seemed to be the cycle of my life. But there was a lot of shame and guilt around that because I always felt like there was something wrong with me, not realizing how much there's more to this food addiction. And I always felt lonely in life. There was always, I just felt like I wasn't a part of this world. I felt like, there was something just always that I couldn't lose the weight or be who I authentically was. Because when people see me, they didn't see Sharon, the person. They saw, oh, you have an eating problem. So, if you just stop snacking, you just stop, this or that, or having an extra something, you'll lose the weight and your life will be much better. And so I really was waiting for that. And I was always waiting for that magical moment that, God or some higher power was going to come down and fix me, because I just felt like that I was broken.
Yeah. So then what was kind of like your aha moment, or was there an aha moment that like really kind of spurned you into doing the work that I know that you're doing? Like what was the tipping point for you?
Well, the tipping point for me has always been that, I've always been overweight, but I went through a lot of emotional pain young. I lost my mother when I was young. And it seems like, it just seems like when traumatic things happened, I went to the food, and I didn't really realize that. And I could easily in a year gain 80 pounds or so. And I had a hard time understanding this disease. I just always felt like, I didn't know it was a disease. I just had something wrong with my willpower. And I think also too that really helped me was I at 16 had a social worker at school say to me, you could go to Overeaters Anonymous. This is when they had teenage OA. And this was back in the, I hate to say it, late 70s, early 80s. And I went a couple times, but I didn't understand it because there were some older people too. And I just felt like it was not for me. But however, it planted the seed that I knew that there was something out there that could help me. And so, I never gave up on myself. And I just wanted to beat this. And the it, whatever, I never knew what it was. And that's was how this all began.
Yeah. So you've been on your recovery journey for a while at this point. And I'm wondering, like, do you remember what it was like when you kind of first started out? Was it difficult, or did you find it kind of easy? Has it been
Oh,
difficult along the way? How do you keep going where you haven't given up on yourself?
well, actually, it's a combination of two things. The professional work that I'm doing with my therapist and like working with you, Molly, and understanding the addiction. I first time in my life that I understand it's not me. I have this rewiring in my head. And like, you've had help teach me, and and therapy is that even though I'm going through all this pain in life, I don't have to use the food, although my brain has been so conditioned to hijack me because that's what I've been doing. I go so long and then I go right to the food. So today I have that aspect that really helps me. And like when we talk too, it's a different way I look at myself that helps too. This, I know today this is a disease. For a long time when I heard, oh, it's a disease, I disease to me is cancer or Parkinson's or something like that. That's a disease. But to tell me I have a disease, but I I think on the professional level, and also working, like going to OA and being with my peers, have also helped me, and that has strengthened me.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I'm wondering too, because I know a bit of your, right, because we do work together. So I
Yeah.
know some of the tools that you've used along the way, and sometimes those tools were really helpful for a bit. Sometimes some of those tools have continued to be helpful. Some of those tools haven't been very helpful at all. Can you talk a bit about the different things that you've done along the way that have really gotten you to where you are today, whether they've worked long term or not?
Yeah. One of the things is that with your help is that I've learned to ask myself some questions like, what do I need? Is this little Sharon's need? Is this a teenage Sharon need? Or just is the need that I just need a break, that I never gave myself? So asking those questions. In the beginning, I did a lot of journaling. That helped me tremendously, but I don't do that as much, but I do still do now and again pick it up, and especially when it's really something that is hurting me tremendously, it's just like putting it on the paper and just letting it go. um and along the way, finding different plans that work for me, giving myself permission. It's okay. I didn't mess up because I had a little extra something today, or I forgot my lunch. And you know what? I was really hungry. I went to a place, I got a kid's meal and took the hamburger bun off, and I did the best I could because I didn't want to binge. So they're the things that I today do. It's not, oh, Sharon, you messed up. Oh, Sharon, all that negative talk. Some days I'll be like, oh, the wires got crossed today. And that self-help is that what really helps me along the way. And the other good tool that I have is the group meetings. The peer groups that we have, just being open and honest of who we are and can say our feelings, whether it's about food or whatever, and understanding. And some of the more other meetings that are out there that are very strict about certain things you can say and not say and whatever, that doesn't work for me no more, because it just makes me feel again that there's something wrong with me, that I can't express the way I feel.
Yeah, so certainly, so you had mentioned, so like obviously there's like a therapist on board, you're doing some one-on-one addiction work, you're doing group addiction work, you're starting to incorporate some of these things, right? Like talk how you talk to yourself the questions that
Yes.
you're asking yourself. And it sounds like you're giving yourself some grace, right? Allowing for it to not be perfect, which would, it sounds like would have sent you like into the like all or nothing. So now it's like, I might as well just binge or whatever.
Yes. 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 And Molly, like we have talked before, my codependency, that just went right in there. And I didn't realize, with your help and therapy and everything, I'm learning a little difference of the codependency and the food addiction. Sometimes they intertwine that I don't, you know, I just want to fix everything. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's, you are a fixer. I mean, you're a nurse, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
you do. And you go to
Yes.
your patients and that's your job is, like really that's your job is to like make
Yeah.
things easier or whatever for your patients
Right.
and their families.
Mm,
And it would
yes.
make sense because that's kind of like who you are on the inside too.
Y-
You just want people to be
Absolutely.
happy and and I think that really shines through with you too, is like you're just this like pure, you're just this pure soul. And I think that's one of the things that I've enjoyed most about knowing you. And I'm so honored that you've allowed me to get to know you, because
Yeah.
you are so genuine and pure in your intentions and what you want. And it's often, I always think about folks because I can see a bit of myself in your stuff too, right? And it's like those
Yeah.
sensitive souls, and oftentimes our kindness gets mistaken for weakness, right? And so we get taken
Hmm.
advantage of
Yes.
often. And I know one of the things
Yes.
that you've talked a lot about is like how angry you've been for a lot of years. And
Hmm.
I was just wondering, I mean, not that you have to get into detail about that, but I was just wondering like if you have found anything that has been particularly helpful for you with the anger piece of it.
Yeah. Right now, I'm going through a little bit of that anger and it pops up here and there. And I could say two things that have been really helping me. Picking up a phone, talking to another peer has helped, or I text you and just, again, just sometimes your feedback is what do I need? And that just helps me soothe what is this anger, what do I need? The food is not going to solve the problem now. I've learned that. So I have to find other healthy things to do, and sometimes that's just, I'll be honest, just like, curling up on the couch and just binge watch a Netflix movie, or uh, giving myself permission is what it's giving myself permission to do what I need to do to heal myself. Um, like all the stuff that I have gone through these past couple years with, you know, um, some loss, some major loss, and I separated from my husband. Uh, it's been a very trying year, but the most important thing that I am doing for myself is not giving up on myself. I show up no matter what, and I'm doing the work, even though I want to quit sometimes. Like I'm like, I had enough, but that and that self-talk, Molly, like you said, that, just, oh, wait a minute, my wires have just been crossed. Let me think, am I panicking? What is this feeling? Is it true anger? Is it frustration? Like I never was in touch with the feeling part. So yeah, that helps tremendously.
That's so amazing. So thinking about like all of this work that you've been doing over the years on and off, and more recently, like really kind of like pushing through, like you said, this year has been really trying. 2022 I know was pretty intense for you, and it had kind of started the tail end of 2021 when you made some decisions for yourself. 2022 was pretty intense. There's been some ups and downs. So
Yes.
thinking about like what is life like for you, like currently, as far as your mental and emotional well-being, your relationships, like mental, or is there any mental gymnastics? Can you kind of talk about like what it's like now when you're like kind of in the thick of it, working on some stuff.
Yeah, that's the hard part because because it's not easy to get to show up when sometimes I just want to lay in bed and just cry myself to sleep. But I show up. I um I just start to really I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
It's
What do you notice? What do you
I'm
notice?
sorry,
No, don't
Molly.
be sorry at all. What do you notice like when you're in the food versus when you're out of the food? Like what do you notice about like
So
when you're out of the food? Yep. Yeah.
so yeah, that's part of where I was going. So yeah, so like when I'm in the midst of all that anger and these feelings and this disease process, because now I understand it is a disease. It's the disease of the mind. And that's what I didn't understand. So I could be gentle with myself a little more, the self-talking, um, the just really the recovery of just showing up, doing the footwork, becoming, this is the word I want, disciplined. That has been the key word for me these past few months of keeping my recovery solid. Doing the footwork or showing up at the meetings or just picking up the phone or, no, do I want to take my lunch with me? Heck no. But it's doing all those things that help me keep my recovery, because when I have my recovery, my clarity of my thinking is, oh God, that's the miracle of it. I'm thinking better. I'm not people pleasing. I'm not nasty to other people, like, not short tempered, not irritable. Just, I could do things, like you said, from my heart. You know, um, that's the gift of the recovery and putting down, it's the sugar. The sugar for me was the addiction and the white flour. It's just, I could tell you, it just gave me a whole different, it kept the chatter in my head constantly going. And now that I don't have that today. And it's just, oh, the other thing is that I don't like counting days. I have 24 hours. I have had like people, I worked with sponsors and they're like, oh, you had a slip, so you have to start day one. That used to make me feel like I was a failure. And I'm not a failure. And the truth of the matter is, I only have 24 hours. The numbers on the scale freak me out, just like the numbers of day. I'm abstinent today, and I could say I've been in program for a year, or, that is what is more stable for me today. Before, I was looking for the magical diet, and like I said, something magical in the universe to come down and say, you're healed, Sharon. I mean, because that's easier. This working on yourself is hard work.
Absolutely. And I think that like, I know I can totally relate to what you literally just said, which makes me believe others will too, right? This belief that for so long the message was there's something wrong with us. We're broken. We're damaged. We didn't get the
Yeah,
memo, the information, something that somebody else did, right? And so there's
yeah,
like this
yeah,
constant like seeking of like, this is the magical thing. This is the time. This is the whatever. And the truth is that there's no one thing. It's this series of all these very small things that we do consistently over time, right? not
right,
not huge intensity, not with perfection, but just consistently over time showing up for ourselves and doing these things. And so I'm wondering, like, would you be willing to share what are the things that you need to do for yourself on a daily basis, that kind of keeps you in that 24 hours, that keeps you present and doing the things you want to be doing, need to be doing to stay like on the track you want to be on?
Oh, yeah, every day. I again, it's having a ritual or regimen or discipline. Just like you brush your teeth and make your bed. I get, I get up and actually the night before I always make my breakfast so that I don't have to think about it, and try to get my lunch done. Not always perfect on that, but that is something I do. I do meditation, even if it's just a 5-minute meditation. Um, I center my day. I thank my higher power. For me, it's God, for this day. And I call another fella and just reach out during the day at some time, just to make that contact, because I am really learning through these groups. And I'm forget Molly what said. It's like the opposite of addiction is, we isolate. It's really the community and coming together that really helps us heal and keep in recovery. And so I do that. And I know that today I'm not alone. I do all kinds of meetings. I just don't do an OA meeting. I do a group meeting. I do a sugar addicts meeting. I even if I have a family OA meeting that's been, I call it my family because it's the one I've been going to for the last 10 years, on and off. But if they need somebody to lead a meeting, I do service because I think that's giving back is just as important as getting. Um, and most importantly, one of the tools I've learned is this journey is not linear. It's not a straight line. And that's what I was looking for. And some days it's a corkscrew kind of day, or it's a little bend of a day. But when I heard that, and I know you've said it many times, that, and I thought, yeah, I guess so. When you think of life, it's never straight, right? I mean, it would be boring. But most of all, Molly, for me, is the help of having that self-talk and to know that I am okay with who I am today, uh, and just loving me for me, and and that I am not. I might be human, but I'm not. Um, I'm not junk.
Not at
Yeah,
all. That's
yeah,
just it, is not at all. And I think about that often too, when I think about how we've used food and it's survival, right? And it's survival on a
yeah,
few different levels, right? So there's
yes,
like survival of the species, as an individual, like entity, mammal needing to walk around, but also like when these when we have histories of some adverse childhood experiences or major traumas, our brain is just a bit more sensitized to, what somebody else might consider like an everyday stressor,
mm-hmm,
that they
yeah,
have some sort of other coping skill for. And we go to this food and we're not picking steak and Brussels sprouts to
no,
like assuage our, anger or our, feelings of
yeah,
betrayal or pain, whatever it might be. We're picking junk. And I think about, a lot of times I have clients who have a really hard time leaving food behind. It's hard for them to want to save it for one reason or another. So they feel like, oh, I'm just going to eat it. And I'm like, but your body is not a trash can. Like, it either goes into the trash or it goes into you. You're not a trash can. And the same as for what you're saying, like, we're not junk. We are not junk. And it's like this reinforcement of like, I'm not junk when I'm not putting junk into, right? Like, I'm not a
yeah,
junk
yeah,
compactor or a trash can compactor. I'm not a trash can. Like, the things I'm putting
yeah,
into me can be things that get me, again, closer to what I need and want physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it might be. And I think you've just really, for me, I just loved watching this process for you, like having some of these ahas and, um, listening to the self-talk that you've had where you've repeated this pattern for years, and then all of a sudden one day you're like, and then I thought to myself, like, I don't have to do it that way. And you've done something else. And
Yeah.
I think it's just a true testament to, like, when we don't give up on ourselves, like, that rewiring can happen. And you're right, it's not easy. It takes repetition, because it took repetition
Mm-hmm.
to build up the pattern that currently exists, So I love what you had to say though too about, like, you have this lovely mix and match, right? Like, you've got traditional therapy, you've got addiction coaching, you've got 12-step stuff, and then you've got like treatment groups. You have books or podcasts or fellows and friends, right? But that you have what's working for you. And
Yes.
whatever that like mixture is for the day, it just all depends on what it is you need that day. And sometimes it's like stopping the car on the side of the road, taking a breath and going like, oh, what do you need today, Sharon? What's going on?
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
tired. Do you need to rest? Whatever, like just asking yourself those questions. And
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful that you, like, I guess the thing is like, I'm taking from my experience with you that you're taking your power back.
Yes. Yes, that is so true. I've, like you said, I grew up taking care of everybody in my family. I was the one that in the dysfunctional family, I was the caretaker. I'm a nurse, a caretaker. I take care, but I never stopped to just take care of me. And that's what's new. And also letting go and the shame that I'm okay, that I can do this. Is every day perfect? No. And it's okay not to be. That's the other thing, because that was my codependency. I had to be perfect. If everybody would just do everything the right way that I would have it, life would be wonderful. And I wouldn't have to eat because I wouldn't feel stressed and. So yeah, that I played that tape many a times, and I also played, okay, this year I'm going to do it. And but never do it. I just would put it out there, but never really get to the root of the problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, I still have one more question for you. You know that I have
Okay.
kind of that signature question, but before I get to that, I was wondering a bit too, just because, again, like, I am so inspired by your
Oh,
journey, and I'm just thinking others will be too. And I know earlier, well, not earlier this year because it's 2023, but in 2022, you took a trip to another country, and
yeah.
it was, I mean, can you kind of talk about that? Like, what that was like for you, to be able to do that while, like, on this recovery journey?
Yeah. I went to Ireland, the trip of my lifetime that I've been saving and giving the money away to so many different things that I said that was it. I was going to do something for me. I took the trip. I went to Ireland, had the time of my life. I walked or play when I couldn't even think I could walk places because of my weight and whatever, but I just felt so free. It was just the freedom to be me. And you know, uh, oh, just I'm getting so um, excited just thinking about it because I was so many years scared to do it, thinking I couldn't fit on the plane. I couldn't, oh, what if I get there and they can't accommodate me? But I have to say, I went and when I did that, it empowered me so much that I knew that my life had just begun. Even though I had some obstacles, because I had some hard times climbing some hills and, I have a bad knee. But even then, I was there and I came back and it just made me want to empower myself more and more. And when I went on the trip, it was never about the food. Like, it's just amazing how you just figure it out. It starts to come second nature, you know, and, there was nothing in Ireland that looked that good that I figure I would die, because I didn't get it. But, uh, It was just a really wonderful experience, and something I treasure in my heart. And sometimes that's another thing. I think of that moment that I went to Ireland, and just because that's part of my recovery. That was part of my recovery, going, knowing I could do it. I didn't need anybody. I didn't fit the mold, as they kind of say, it was just me. It was just me on a tour bus, and enjoying life and meeting so many people. And it actually, I have to tell you, it was the first time I felt alive inside for a long time. And that was the gift. So when I felt that and I came home, I was like, oh, I'm just, that gave me even more and more encouragement to keep on going, and I'm going to go back another day, another time. It just opened the door for me to keep growing. And I also recognize it isn't about the weight. I've made it about the weight for so long that I really truly can see it is the emotional, physical pain, the emotional pain, all that stuff, that's what has been kept keeping me in the food. And so when I work on it and I show up, I that pain gets a little less each day. Yeah.
It's amazing because I noticed that shift in you too after that
Yeah.
trip. I know leading up to it, we were doing a lot of planning, like what could you have on the plane, because
Yeah.
it was a 7 hour, 8 hour plane ride, whatever it was. And then, the plane ride back and that kind of thing. But we knew once you got there, you would find things, right? And
Mhm.
because it's not like people in Ireland eat all that different than people in the US, they might have a few
Yeah.
more potatoes at their meal or something along those lines,
Yeah.
some starchier things or whatever. But it's a lot of meat and potatoes and vegetables.
Yes.
And so, like you said,
Yeah.
there wasn't anything special there that you were going to like really miss out on if you passed it by. And so yeah,
Absolutely.
I think ever since you got back from that trip, I think it did. I think it let you know like you could do hard things. And
Yes.
and you can do hard things and it has nothing to do with food, the weight, the whatever. It had everything to do. You were living your best life on that trip
Yes.
because you were so like in awe of taking in the experience and like meeting new people and
Yeah.
learning and just seeing things. And I think like if we can somehow bottle that, we would, like I would be out of a job and I would love that. But also if somehow we can like recall that every day, like I think about that for you, like even if like every day you would have this like just 5 minutes of recalling that trip and how you felt before, during, after, or even just like during, after, not necessarily before when there was like some anxiety about the plane ride, just with the food stuff or whatever. But I just wonder like what that would do for us, like how that would shift how we show up then each day. Like, would we look at each day with that kind of awe? Would we be as present in our day to day as we were, on this trip? And I say I wasn't with you in Ireland, but I'd been in Ireland just a few months before you had. So like, as you were like telling me, I'm like reliving myself and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like those kinds of experiences, those kinds of feelings, and
Mhm.
knowing we did those things, right? It just really is encouraging to keep going, to not give up and say, like, I want to go back.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to go back.
Yeah.
And in order to go back, I've got to be healthy. I've got to, probably save money again. I've got, right,
Yeah.
like whatever those things might be.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So then we're
Yeah.
more likely to make decisions that move us toward that. Right.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thank you for being willing to share that. I knew it was a pivotal moment for you and I am
Yeah.
grateful you shared that.
Just
Yeah.
Molly, when you shared about if you could bottle that essence, um, the freedom I felt, the independence, the self-worth. Yeah, that's sometimes when you say, what are some of the things I do in recovery? I do think about that. And I have my little leprechaun on my table because when I look at it, it just makes me smile and it just thinks of my journey and, you know, there's so much out there, more to come. And also, the main point I wanted to say was, it's not about the food. I don't think about food. I think, oh, well, you know what? Now I can work an extra day because I have more energy, and maybe I could plan this trip next. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So thank you. I know I've taken up quite a bit of your day already, but I've
That's
got
it.
one more question. We have a signature
Mhm.
question, kind of like we do with the podcast. So the wrap it up kind of question is, what did you need to hear when you were first starting, or at some point along the way? Was there something that you needed to hear that maybe somebody watching this might take something from that, might get something positive?
For me, that it wasn't me, it was my brain just was rewired than somebody of a normal functioning. That's not a addict. Addicts' brains were rewired, and that was really like one of those aha moments. It's not my fault no more. And there was a solution, and the solution is doing the work, working with the counselor, like your podcast, the group, all of that. It's so, like, I could be in the car driving and I could put a podcast on, or listen to Food Junkies, or something, and it just gives me enough to know that I'm not alone out there. And just being validated that by you and my therapist, that their little Sharon is worth recovering, because little Sharon had a lot of trauma in her life. And I was so conditioned to fix everything and everybody and be a doer for everybody, that I lost myself along the way. And I heard that um and like you said, it's just that little, like you told me many times, what do I need? Nobody's ever asked me, Sharon, what do you need? It was always, what can you do for me? And so now I give myself permission. What do I need? You know? And so that, and I think in the beginning, I also heard, again, there's no quick fixes, and recovery is a lifetime process.
100%. Like you said, no quick fixes. This is like the day in, day out kind of stuff,
Yeah,
because it does take a lot of repetition of hearing
yeah,
things, of doing things right, to kind of break or change the behavior habits. It's not even about like breaking a bad habit so much as it's about like implementing the ones that we actually want to be doing, right?
yes,
And it
yeah,
takes time. It just takes time.
yeah, yeah,
So be patient.
yeah. That's And listen, I rather be in recovery and feel the essence of a trip, or the essence of, I'm going to be a grandmom, or just being present when I'm around other people, than be sluggish in the food, having trying to get the sugar high that doesn't even work. It gets to a point, it just doesn't work. It just makes it harder to think, work, and I think there's much more to life than just eating. But I didn't know that until I learned more about the uh, the disease process of the brain. And and you certainly really taught me that. Everybody out, I had my therapist, it was all about the emotional, but to just learn about the addiction process, Molly, that is really was the eye opener, because it took the shame and blame off of me.
100%. Right. It's not our fault. It's just our responsibility, right? It's just our
Mhm.
job to take
Yep,
care of it. Now that we
yep,
know, like, okay, how am I going to take care of it? What am I going to do?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, well, thank you again, Sharon, so much for being here.
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you for having me.
you
I
bet.
appreciate it.
I appreciate
Thanks.
you.
If you like what you heard today, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.